Welcome everybody to tonight's Placer Regional Transportation Challenges and Needs discussion. My name is Mike Lucan. I'm the Executive Director of Placer County Transportation Planning Agency. We're happy you joined us tonight, taking time out of your busy schedule to learn a little bit about transportation, and really the purpose of tonight's meeting is to get your feedback after hearing, kind of what our existing issues and problems are here in Placer County with transportation, and we want to hear back from you. If our priorities are on track, if we need to emphasize something else, if there's something we haven't thought of, how does it pertain to Loomis here in general. And just kind of what is your overall sentiment with transportation? Councilperson Clark Kretz and Councilperson Baker, if you'd like to say some introductory remarks before we get going here tonight.
Sure. You want me to go first, Brian?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, I am Jan Clark Kretz. I'm one of your council members from here in Loomis. And Brian and I would really like to thank all of you for joining us today. And as many of you know or have already experienced, you can see that traffic is on the uptick again, rapidly returning to our area, and we need to act fast before it gets worse. And so we know that having the right infrastructure and transportation infrastructure will protect our quality of life and keep Placer moving and flourishing. And both Brian and I are excited to have this discussion about what those priorities are and how we can make them happen. So we're really excited to be here today.
Thank you, Jan. I'm Brian Baker, also serving on the town council, and have served on PCTPA now for, I think, almost the whole time that I've been on council, actually. And through that process, we've worked on so many different projects, I-80/65, the Horseshoe Bar, our interchange, Highway 65 widening. There's been Taylor Road improvements through town and also outside of town, and the future expansion of the Horseshoe Bar interchange. And so it's important that we get the community's thoughts, insights, what we need to focus on, and what's important to the members of the town of Loomis. And so we're grateful for the opportunity, for your time. We know that time is valuable, so we'll try to keep this as short as possible and as informational as possible so that we can all get on to our evenings, but we want to say thank you.
Well, thank you, Jan and Brian. So the first thing I'll kind of do is kind of go over our agenda for this evening. And so we have a number of topics to talk to you about. One is traffic itself. As both of our council members have identified, traffic is back. And Aaron Hoyt, senior planner on my staff, is going to talk a little bit about where we're at with traffic. Anecdotally, we're all stuck on 65 at some point during the week, and we'll just kind of give you an idea of well how bad is it? Where are we at? Past as we get out of the pandemic here, and then we're going to talk a little bit about impact fees and builders and developers in Placer County pay mitigation fees for the ability to put their projects here in the county, and they play a pivotal role in paying for a lot of the infrastructure. And we wanted to kind of show you how that works if you don't know already, and then again answer some questions, if you will, on that in our traffic model. I'm then going to go into what are our regional projects and priorities. What are the ones we have already, and this is a real key point of interaction here tonight with you. Please, as I present these projects, please ask questions about those if you don't understand them, or, a lot of them are phased or very large and complicated projects. But also, we're certainly we're professional transportation planners and engineers, but we want to hear what your priorities are. What are your interests as it affects you here as a resident or someone that works here in the county if you're not a resident. Lastly, we'll have, again, this open Q&A section. So if you don't get a chance to answer it in chat, or you'd like to talk a little bit more about it, we'll have a chance to do that. And then at the end of that, we're trying to, do our little part to support our restaurants, which have been so impacted by the pandemic. And so our little part is we're actually going to offer as a consolation prize for you taking an hour and a half out of your day today. We're going to raffle off a gift certificate from a Loomis restaurant here to again kind of help out. So we appreciate your participation tonight. All right, so moving on in our presentation here tonight, before we kind of get going, let's tell you a little bit about us. So who's this weird entity, this Placer County Transportation Planning Agency? Are they part of the county? Because they got the word county in their name. No, we're not. We're not the county. We're a special district, and we were created about 30 years ago by the cities and the county and the towns, we were created kind of with the purpose of that we wanted to control our destiny here in Placer County in terms of transportation planning and where our transportation dollars go. In other parts of the Sacramento area, you have people in other communities kind of dictating, if you will, or telling or recommending for things that are happening in your community. And we in Placer, we're big on local control, and we didn't want somebody in West Sacramento and Davis telling us where to put our road or what we could use our money for, or even having to compete against them for dollars. We want to keep our dollars right here in Placer, and we want to determine our own destiny. And so we did that. And what do? Our job is to basically go out and find the money. We don't do the general plans for the communities. You guys are right in the middle of a general plan update. We don't tell you where to put your residential development or how much of it or anything like that, or where to put your post office or where to put your commercial center. What we do is the cities and the towns tell us, and the county tell us that, they through their general plans. And then our job is to help them plan where the roads are. So they tell us, and we go, okay, that makes sense. Or we interactively help them. And then we help them go get money for it. And so that's a big part of our job. We do lots of other transportation related things, but that's basically what we do. And again, we did it because of self-control right here in Placer County. And then another little part about us, if we go to the next slide, Aaron, is kind of how geographically, how do we plan? Do we just look at Placer County, or do we look at a bigger area? And the answer is both. We look out first to the big, what's called the Northern California mega region. So that's all the way from the Bay Area to Reno. It includes the Bay Area, the Sacramento metropolitan area, and again, all the way up to Reno. And this is because people drive everywhere for work or for different reasons to go visit their families, or to go spend some time in the Bay Area going to a play or an opera or something like that. People don't stop at the borders of their communities. And so we have to work with our partners in these other areas to plan transportation. We then, within the Sacramento region, we're in the Sacramento metropolitan region, and there's a metropolitan transportation plan for all 6 counties in the Sacramento region. And so we plan for that. And then we narrow it down to Placer County, and most importantly, Placer County, and look out for the needs of Placer County with a regional transportation plan here for Placer County. And we look at almost all of Placer County. In the Tahoe Basin, they have their own transportation plan for the basin, and it's because they're a bi-state controlled area, and so the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency does the stuff in the Tahoe Basin. Though we have to coordinate with them too. And just a little fact here on the screen, just to demonstrate this is, 82,000 people from Placer County actually go to Sacramento County pre-pandemic every day to work. So. anyway, so as just kind of a context of how we plan. And we also plan, I should mention, we also plan very far into the future. We don't change our plans every time somebody proposes, you know, a new mall or a new Bass Pro, or even in your case, a new Costco. We don't kind of go, oh, let's start planning now. We actually take a look again at these general plans, and we look at way out into the future, you know, sometimes 20 to 40 years out into the future. So it's a very long process, and it's because these projects are very costly and very expensive. We can't just do them overnight. So anyway, that's just the kind of context that we're operating in. And now I'm going to turn it over to Aaron, who's going to talk a little bit about traffic and travel trends and our new traffic model that we're working on here. So Aaron, go ahead and take it over. And again, please, if you have questions of Aaron or I, please put them in the chat box.
Great, thank you, Mike. So I'm going to spend a few minutes just talking about one of our first polling questions was, you know, how do you think traffic is today? Is it different, better, worse, about the same as pre-pandemic? So the next few slides I'm going to share on this topic. And really during the last year, there's been a lot of changes, you know, and disruptions to our regular lives that we've had to endure. But the good news is there's a lot of things that are starting to seem more like normal. You know, a lot of our restaurants are back open now. We have indoor seating again. We have high school sports again. And I know for my kids, you know, I have to drop my daughter off every morning at DO, and traffic in town is open again. It's back. So there's a lot of things that are positive markers. And I think traffic in general in Placer County has probably been the quickest to return to normal. And so I want to start off at really kind of a high level to talk just about travel trends in Placer County. The chart on your screen is from a analytics and data firm who captures information from, you know, cell phone apps and different platforms and data sources. But what this is trying to illustrate is how much Placer County residents drive in terms of their overall and total vehicle miles traveled. In pre-pandemic, say early March 2020, on average, Placer County residents drove about 18 miles per day. Soon as that first stay-at-home order hit mid-March, you can see a dramatic drop-off in the amount of travel that we did on a daily basis. That ebbed and flowed throughout the rest of 2020. And then you see the second dip coming in, you know, November, December timeframe, where we had our second stay-at-home in order. And at that point in time, overall residential vehicle miles traveled dropped by about 50% in Placer County. But quickly after that, right, in early January, the stay-at-home order was lifted. And what this chart is showing is that traffic, the amount of miles that people drove on a daily basis, shot back up. And as of the beginning of February 2020, we were only down about overall 20% of where we were from March 2020. So this is kind of illustrating, you know, how much traffic has come back to normal. And again, the next series of slides I'm going to talk about hone in more on State Route 65 and Interstate 80. And the reason why I'm focusing on those two facilities the most is we actually have some really good data from Caltrans. And if you're ever driving down the highway, you'll notice that certain parts of the highway, there's going to be these little octagonal or circular shapes in the roadways, and those are loops. So those loops actually sit there and measure how many cars are going over those markers and at what speed, and they send all this data back to Caltrans. So we have access to that data. And so this is one way for us to tell what has happened. I think during the entire, most of the time of COVID, I know Taylor Road's still busy in town, but, you know, we're going to focus here on just the highways. And overall, I'll say that State Route 65 and Interstate 80 is about 90% of normal. When I say normal, it's where was it before the pandemic. So this slide here shows our traffic during the course of the average day in January. And what it does is it actually shows the time distribution of traffic during an average January day for 2021, 2020, and 2019. And what we can gather here from the Caltrans data is that the blue line representing 2021, the first thing I kind of notice is that that blue line has shifted further to the right, meaning that our peak traffic in the mornings isn't happening till later in the day, maybe 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Reason being is we don't have all the commuters anymore who are going to Sacramento or leaving Placer County. So that's one significant change that we've noticed. And if you're early bird, you probably know that on the freeways, right? There's not as much traffic there. And the other thing that I notice is there's the blue line kind of spikes midday from around noon to about maybe 4 or 5 o'clock. And actually that blue line for the amount of traffic during that early afternoon is actually higher than it was back in 2020 and back in 2019. This may be that people are doing Zooms in their car. I know that some people have done that in the past. Maybe it's a greater flexibility because they're starting earlier, maybe they're working later. So kind of this, work life balance has kind of changed the way we travel. Also, not as many people are riding transit anymore in Placer County. So, maybe more people are in their cars. On the right side of your screen is a chart showing State Route 65 in the northbound direction. We haven't seen, for some reason, the traffic return quite back to the same level it has in southbound direction, but those similar trends that I mentioned for the southbound direction are there. The blue line is shifted a little bit to the right, meaning less traffic in the morning. And during the midday time periods, we're actually seeing that traffic is near what it was in 2020 and in most cases higher than it was in 2019. We also can tell from those markers on Caltrans's highway that our speeds are a lot higher. And the speeds are higher because the traffic levels have not broken down to what they used to be. They're not in congested conditions. It's not stop and go traffic. So therefore, drivers are able to go to a little higher speed. We can see that, in the off-peak hours, kind of the overnight hours, our speeds are as high as they were back in 2019. They are higher during the morning commute hours, your typical morning hours, than they were back in 2020 and 2019, averaging maybe about 42 miles an hour. But we do notice that, over the course of the day, it ebbs and flows with our typical peak periods that we see, but still higher than it used to be. So next, I'm going to focus on Interstate 80. Same kind of slides are going to follow a similar format. And Interstate 80, as I mentioned before, is still about hovering around 90% of normal as of January of this year. Again, similar set of slides for I-80 eastbound on your left, I-80 westbound on your right. Similar trends we're seeing in traffic here, where that blue line is shifting outwards a little bit. Our peaks is happening a little bit later in the morning, and we have a little bit more afternoon traffic than we've probably had in the past. You can see about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock for 2021 in the eastbound direction that we're really approaching where we were in 2019, although not as high as we were in 2020. And there are also those same similarities for the westbound direction of Interstate 80. And this it really is, these data for I-80 is really kind of true for the points that we've collected information on that runs between I-80 and Rockland Road to I-80 65, and then on the western edge of Placer County down by Douglas Boulevard in Roseville. And not surprising, the speeds are similar. Our speeds are higher than they have been in the past because, again, the congestion is just not there. But we do anticipate as things kind of really continue to open up more, that we're going to see more reductions in speed, a little bit higher traffic isn't occurring. And what will really kind of be the trigger is when does William Jessup, when does Sierra College come back online? When do people start commuting back into their original job locations, and how many of those residents stay home and continue to work remotely as they have been for the last year? And when that happens, we'll start to see some changes. So I'm going to pause.
All right, so moving on to our next topic, which is also Aaron, our senior planner, is going to talk about is what role do builders and developers play in transportation? This is quite a complicated topic, but we thought it was important for us to make sure we explain it well to you, because it's really important, because a lot of our transportation improvements are a big chunk of those are paid for by people who build in our communities, and so Aaron's going to explain all that, as well as our new update, which we're working on for our traffic or travel demand model. So Aaron, take it away.
Thanks. So one of the reasons why we're, as Mike mentioned, we're bringing up, the building community and how they fund transportation is because we all know that we pay for our roads by going to the pump. Whenever we pay for gas, that money's coming back into a county, either the federal level or state level, and that money comes back to us to rehab our roads or actually build new roads. And we constantly hear that, oh, developers need to pay more. And so we thought this would be an opportune time to talk about how in the South Placer area, in the jurisdictions of the cities of Lincoln, Roseville, Rockland, and Western Placer County, that there's already a regional impact fee on builders. And we're going to talk about in the next few slides how they help contribute to those regional improvements and how we set those fees. And as Mike mentioned, we are going through an update at this point in time of that. So it's an opportune time to talk about this. But back in 2000, so nearly 20 years ago, our electeds and some of our community leaders were asking kind of really the same questions we are now. How are we going to fund our future transportation improvements we need? And how are we going to fund some of our most anticipated bottlenecks that we're seeing today, such as Highway 65? And so those cities of Lincoln, Roseville, Rockland, and Placer County formed a Joint Powers Authority. And the sole purpose of that Joint Powers Authority was to set up a regional fee program so all new development would contribute to future improvements of our transportation system. And that JPA was actually formalized in 2002. Oh, got a little ahead of myself there. So these regional fees are levied on all new projects, regardless of whether it's a residential project, a commercial project, or even warehousing. And it's based on the amount of traffic those developments are anticipated to generate. The fees are really considered part of new gross impact on the existing infrastructure. And this is really no different than how builders, maybe in the town of Loomis, city of Lincoln, Rockland, et cetera, are paying for maybe new fire stations, upgrades. They're contributing towards our police forces. They're contributing towards future parks and roads. So no different than that. And when we set up these regional impact fees, we can't charge builders for something they haven't broken. So if a roadway facility is not at capacity and it's anticipated that the extra traffic that they add to it isn't really going to break the facility and lead to breakdown in, say, traffic congestion, we can't charge them for it. But what we can charge them for is if they do break a facility, or if the facility is, say, already broken and they're adding to that problem or complicating that problem, then we can actually charge them this fee for it. And I'll talk about our process to do so in a minute. But I think it's important to point out the improvements that this regional impact fee is contributing to. So this regional impact fee, called the South Placer Regional Transportation Authority, funded the prior Lincoln bypass widening. It's also going to future widening of Highway 65. It has already gone to widening of portions of Sierra College Boulevard and will continue to fund portions of it going into the future. A future roadway called Placer Parkway, and a number of interchange improvements along Interstate 80. And all of these projects listed here generally benefit all of the cities in South Placer in some shape or form. So I did mention, there's certain requirements that we have to abide by when setting up these fees. And these are set in both federal and state legislation. Within California, it's referred to as a Mitigation Fee Act. And there's really 5 steps that are broken down here on your screen. But the short version of all this is that, one, we have to be able to identify our existing deficiencies. So what facilities, what roadway or transportation aspects are already at capacity. We then also have to be able to determine what future deficiencies may occur as the county continues to grow. And then we use that information and we use a traffic demand model to try to anticipate the fair shares of those deficiencies that are attributed to new development. And we have to document this entire process and go before the boards and councils of each of the participants in this Joint Powers Authority. And they all have to unanimously approve the fee program. So I mentioned the traffic demand model, and we're going through this update because we're updating the regional impact fee program right now. In prior updates, there's been new projects added to this list. Sometimes the project scopes have changed, so it's led to increased costs. And when we're doing this, the traffic model helps us in a number of ways. I'm going to go through those. But the traffic demand model can really be boiled down to 3 components. One is our transportation options. What options do people have to get to their destinations? We also need to know where the land use is being assumed to happen in the future, and the types of land use, because different types of land use generates different traffic patterns and also different times of the day. And lastly, we need to really be able to know today and estimate in the future what's going to happen with our travel patterns. So if you probably look back 20, 30 years ago, we may have actually had more than 60% of Placer residents leaving Placer County for jobs. But as Placer counties continue to grow, and as we've had more jobs come here to Placer, we're able to employ more of our own residents. And so we've, at this point in time, may have less people traveling out of county than before. So we have to take all this into account. And one way to illustrate how this will work, because really a traffic demand model is a bunch of complex calculations and algorithms, I'm going to try to attempt to illustrate how this will work. So we have all of our land uses, we put into tables and we put into the model, so that's office space, we put into shopping, we put into our schools, our parks, our warehousing, all the different types of land use categories that might generate traffic. And then we connect it all by our roadways. Oftentimes it's the largest roadways, our arterials, our highways, and some of our collector roads are going to be in here, but oftentimes we don't include all of our small residential streets. But we also include our bikeways. We do know that a small percentage of our population will bike to work. They may also bike to transit. And pre-COVID times, some of our commuter buses were the most popular and were standing room only. And so we really have to take into account where those transit routes are also going in our communities. So we take all that information, and then the model goes through its series of calculations, and we can use it in a few different ways. So on the right side of your screen here is an example of if we were to test out what would happen to traffic if we put a new roadway in, or if we extended a roadway. Let's say, for example, it's in Loomis and we're extending Dock Farms. So this blue line is representative of a new roadway, and the model will do its best to attempt to estimate how traffic patterns will change. So we can see that a lot of traffic is added to this new extension in blue, but we can see in the green where we've actually seen a reduction in travel. So it's all been rerouted to the areas in the salmonish kind of pink color, and then blue is showing the biggest increase in traffic because it's the new roadway here. So this is one of the ways we can use our travel demand model. And I imagine as the town goes through their general plan update, there may be similar discussions of what happens if we do this or that. And a traffic model will help in those estimates. And here's an example of how we determine the fair share. So let's take 65, for example. We already know that it's over capacity. We already know that pre-pandemic it's over capacity, that is. And the bar chart on your left shows the existing level of traffic in gray. It shows a dark gray bar that's the theoretical capacity of the roadway. Well, we can still add more traffic to that. It just happens at a really slow pace, right? You're at 5 mile an hour, 10 mile an hour stop and go traffic. So you have that bar, and we would know from a travel demand model that it's estimated that another X amount of cars are added to this roadway. So now we know the existing traffic and the anticipated future traffic. We can then calculate the share that new development would add to 65. And then we can charge them for the amount of traffic they're adding to this facility. But we still have to find a way to bring in monies to fund the existing problems. But because if you recall earlier, we cannot have new developers be charged for existing problems that they have not contributed to. So that's why we see in this table all the different projects that are funded through the South Placer Regional Transportation Authority. And we can see that some projects, such as Sierra College Boulevard, are 100% on the backs of the builders. Why? Because a lot of the area, especially if you're going north of Taylor Road and King Road, there's no development out there, but there's future development potentially in Lincoln that can add traffic there. We do know that in parts of Rockland and Roseville and Granite Bay, all new development has added in basically required widening of Sierra College Boulevard there. And then in some other instances, the Interstate 80 Rockland Road interchange, it's only being funded around 33% from this fund program. And that's because there was an existing issue in congestion before this program was set up. So
why don't we go on to the next our next topic here, and this is to kind of actually wrap up a little bit about what Aaron was talking about, and kind of look at it from a 30,000 foot level. And as we just talked to you about it in the trivia question, we have this $3 billion to pay for over the next number of years, and part of it's generated by growth, part of it's existing problems we have here, part of it's passed through from people traveling on the interstate. But it's significant. It's a big number. It's $3 billion Now it is less than Sacramento County. Sacramento County is about $9 billion. And the Bay Area, if you go to the Bay, the Bay Area, it's even greater. In LA, it's, it's way up there. So, but to Placer County, for our size, $3 billion is a big number. And of that, so with the traffic impact fees, I mean, in Loomis, if you build, you pay a traffic impact fee. If you're in Roseville, you pay a Roseville traffic impact fee. And then you have the Sparta fees that Aaron talked about, the regional impact fees. If you add all those up together, it pays for, out of that 3 billion, 2 billion of that. And so that's significant and appropriate too. But what it does is it leaves us a gap, and then that gap is about $1 billion. And so what do we, why is there a gap? There's a reason for that. And Aaron explained one, the Mitigation Fee Act, we can only ask the developers for the dollars for the problems that they create with their developments, or the impacts that they create. But there's another little fundamental problem here that you may or may not know about. And that, if we go to the next slide, one of the problems is we, for 40 or 50 years, we actually longer than that, since almost World War II, the Eisenhower administration, we've planned our communities based upon a formula. And that formula is, with a transportation improvement, if we come up with 10% of the cost, because we are impacting this interstate highway in the case of I-80, because they own it, they maintain it, it's their road, they'll pay for 90% of it. And sometimes it's 80-20, depending on the improvement. Well, that's still actually technically what's in law, that's the minimum that you can pay for. And that worked for many, many years, but about 10 to 12, 15 years ago, things began to change, and they began to change because we're growing like crazy. And it also changed because we're growing like crazy, the priorities of the state and federal government changed as well. So you had these two whammies, if you will, happening. And so, yes, technically you qualify for the minimum, but nowadays it's not about the minimum, it's about competition. And so to compete against other communities, we have to now come up with half of the cost of the improvement. So if we want to expand the Horseshoe Bar Road interchange, instead of 10%, we got to pay for half. And that's those numbers add up quick. And that's really what has the biggest impact on that gap that you saw. That $1 billion gap is because now we have to pay for half. And well, how the heck are we going to pay for half? And so 25 other counties in California, they for better or for worse, they said, well, we're gonna come up with a local sales tax measure, and we're gonna come up with this half. Well, problem is now we have competition. So when we go and compete against San Mateo County or Fresno County or Merced County or Stanislaus County, we go to the table and say, hey, we got our 10 or 12%, fund our project. And then those other people, those other counties are right there with us, and they have 50% without a doubt every single time they fund the other counties. And so we're at a competitive disadvantage now, one we probably can't undo. The state's not going to go back and say, oh, well, we're going to change it back to 90-10. That's never going to happen. So we're in a bit of a pickle, and our job tonight is not really to talk about a sales tax measure. We can if you'd like, but what we're talking to you tonight about is that there's a need, and if we had the money, what would we spend it on? And that's what we want to hear from you tonight. So as we move on here in the presentation, I'm sorry, I skipped one slide, very important one. And some of you touched upon this tonight in your questions. So, well, what the heck? We just approved this gas tax. Wasn't this supposed to fix everything? I'm sorry, no, it's not supposed to fix everything. And in our wonderful state of California, they wrangled for 15, 17 years on do we increase the gas tax? How are we going to pay for roads and transit and everything else? And after all that time, and after the backlog for repairing our roads and stuff just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We have we have close to $1 billion just in road rehab needs here in Placer County. They finally came up with the gas tax. But what they did was good, because we need money to fix what we have. And that's what they did. They created a fund to fix what we have. We drive our public transit buses 1 million miles. They needed to be replaced, or more. They need to be replaced. We got potholes everywhere. It needs to be fixed. We have roads that need major reconstruction. It helps pay for that. We have pedestrian safety issues where we need, where we have people that are, concerned about safety. And it'll help with that. It'll help a little bit with local congestion, but only in the extreme worst parts of the state, usually around our seaports in the state, around LA and Long Beach and Oakland. But it's not what it cannot pay for, is it can't pay for expanding our roadways. So even though we planned really well here in Placer County and we bought the right of way needed for all of our roadways and our intersections and our interchanges, it is prohibited to pay for these dollars to pay for those projects. So again, it's not the answer for us. There is other funds that we can tap into, but they require, again, this 50% match, either at the state level, or you probably all heard about the $2 trillion federal infrastructure package. That's great. We have a place to apply to, but they require a 50% match. So we're kind of in the same spot. So I'm sorry to say the gas tax was not the solution for our planned expansion. They all knew we were growing, the whole state's growing, but they couldn't figure it out. So we got to figure it out on our own again. Next slide, Aaron. So before we kind of get into our priorities, well, what would happen if we had some of these dollars? And we've had a couple of recent projects that I'll talk about here real quick. That we had some dollars and we're able to get them funded, important projects. So our first project is up in Auburn on Highway 49, a current state highway. But they didn't put in curbs, gutters, and sidewalks and bike lanes where they should have when they built this thing many years ago. And so now we're going back and actually fixing the roadway. And so we were able to secure, and actually Aaron played a pivotal role in this. We were able to secure at the time the largest bike ped grant in the entire Sacramento region. We got $14.4 million to basically put in sidewalks and to create or to rectify an unsafe situation out there. We had people getting killed by crossing the street because they didn't have a way to. They couldn't walk along the side of the street because there was no sidewalk there, and it was a hillside and it was unsafe. And so they crossed to the other side and got hit, or some things like that. We have lots of schools along this route that kids can't get to and from their homes to schools because there's no sidewalks. And so again, very, very important project that we got a little bit of money to match in this case, the state fund, and we were able to fund this project. Another one, and we had to get really creative with this in the next slide, is we actually just got $62 million worth of projects along Interstate 80 of different types. We got a new bus route from Lincoln to the hospitals to the light rail station. We got money to fund the Dry Creek Greenway, the big drive bike trail. I'll talk about in a little bit. In Roseville, we got some money to fund the what are called auxiliary lanes along Interstate 80 in Rockland and Roseville. And then Sacramento County, our partners on this, got a bunch of funding for the light rail station down at Watt Avenue and to repair or to replace their really old light rail vehicles and a number of other things on Watt Avenue. But how did we get this money is kind of, we kind of lucked out here because Sacramento County actually has they're one of those counties that has a local transportation measure. And so their projects actually had more than enough match available. And we kind of rode on their coattails, and our projects who didn't have that 50% match, we were able to utilize their matching funds as part of our match for the overall project. So we've got very, very creative, and we rode on Sacramento County's coattails to be able to get this funded. We probably can't do that ever again, but you could see if we had a measure in place, we wouldn't have to be so creative, and we could probably funded a lot more projects with that. So again, if you have the dollars in place, you do get the money for your transportation. So the next series, and here's the really important, one of the most important projects in that grant is this 5th lane. So there's the last 2 bottlenecks on Interstate 80, the last 2 big ones. One is from Douglas to Riverside in the westbound direction. One's from 8065 interchange to Rockland Road in the eastbound direction. We got these 2 projects funded with that thing that I just talked about, with riding on the backs of Sacramento County. Next slide. So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our projects and our current projects and our current priorities. And we're telling you these because we want you to understand a little bit more about these projects. If some of you know a lot about them, some of you don't. But then if you don't and you have questions, this is the time to ask. But also, these may not be all the priorities, and these may not be the right priorities. And we want to hear from you, because if we're going to go forward and try to do something like a sales tax measure, we want to know what should we spend that money on? If we're going to do it, what should it be spent on? Or what shouldn't it be spent on? Or what are some things, aspects about these projects maybe we didn't think of, as in our jobs as transportation planners that are important to you. So with our major projects, our roadway projects, we kind of have the big 5 in South Placer. We have the 8065 interchange. We have the widening of Highway 65. We have the auxiliary lanes. We just got those funded, so they're no longer on the list. And then we have a couple ones that you may know about. One I'm sure you know about is Baseline Road. It's basically a planned, or it's an alternative to Interstate 80. And for years, it's been planned to be expanded to 4 and then to 6 lanes. And then there's a new roadway that you may not know about, which is a new limited access expressway called Placer Parkway. And I'll explain that a little more in a second. So this first big project, the biggest infrastructure project in the entire county from a transportation standpoint, is the interchange. It's a $500 million project. And it has a very significant impact on traffic and traffic flow. And it was built way back in the 70s and 80s, and it was good at the time, but it's reached its lifetime, and we need to increase the size of it. And so we started to do that. We built the first phase of that. That phase was completed in November of 2019. What we did is we addressed the worst traffic problem first, and at the time the worst was northbound Highway 65. So we added a lane onto the bridge onto the viaduct, if you will, the bridge structure, and then all the way up to Pleasant Grove Boulevard. And then we also improved the Galleria Stanford Ranch Road interchange, which on the next slide you'll see we in this case it was an unsafe situation. We fixed the safety issue going to the Galleria, but if you wanted to go to Costco, it was a little tricky to get across 4 lanes of traffic and get over to Costco to get your gas or your 50-pound bag of tortilla chips. I guess you could say you took your life in your own hands to get across those 4 lanes of traffic. It was unsafe. So what we did is we expanded the off ramps and on ramps, and we signalized that off ramp onto northbound Stanford Ranch Road. So it's a safe situation now. And so it was built to its full build out condition there at Stanford Ranch Gallery. And again, the lanes also extended all the way up to Pleasant Grove Boulevard. So that's phase 1. We had to look under the seat cushions. We took money saved from other projects. We cobbled together, 10 or so funding sources, one of which was Sparta, and put this together. And we kind of used our last major dollars, if you will, on this project. So the good news is we fixed that. Northbound traffic is a lot way better, But the bad news is we're kind of done for a while because we don't have the money to finish the other $450 million of the interchange. And unfortunately, with each passing year, it gets more expensive because transportation infrastructure it always gets more expensive. It doesn't go the other way. So what's left on the interchange to do? We basically need to replace the clover leaf with a flyover to connect onto the viaduct. So get rid of that undersized clover leaf. The next slide, you'll see we have to add capacity onto the on-ramps and off-ramps from Interstate 80. The next thing is we need to rectify another safety situation that is developed over the years. So, originally we built the Eureka off-ramp, the Taylor Road off-ramp, and then the interchange. Well, over the years, and because of traffic levels, it became apparent that these were too close together, these 3 off-ramps and 3 interchanges. And so when we fix this thing, we got to make sure we fix it, not leave an existing problem. And the problem is these are now too close together. So we're actually not proposing, what is actually approved is to eliminate the Taylor Road off-ramp. And then everybody goes, oh my gosh, Taylor Road's really important. It's really important to Loomis, really important to Rockland. We're not eliminating access to Taylor Road. We're basically going to be building a road connecting to Eureka, which will then give you access onto Taylor Road. We're just eliminating the off-ramp. So access to Taylor will be removed. But what this will do is there's a thing there called the weave, and that's a sort of a transportation term. But what happens is when people get to this interchange, especially if they haven't been there before, they go, well, which way do I go? And everything's close together and I'm confused. And it just makes it worse by having these interchanges too close together. And so eliminating this off ramp, doing some other things to this interchange will make it more safe and prevent, what we hate to see, and that is, traffic injuries and traffic fatalities. And in this intersection, I'm sorry to say, in the last 15 years, we've had 13 fatalities, most, if not all, rear end collisions resulting from things like the weave. And so we're trying to, again, to fix this. So to fix an unsafe, what has become an unsafe situation. So then when the last part of it is we would widen the interchange underneath the new infrastructure. And then there's an artist rendition here of kind of what it would look like. What you see here is the connecting viaduct bridges. What people ask, well, that's that thing in the middle. We'd also, when we expand Highway 65, we're going to include HOV lanes. I-80 already has HOV lanes, so this is how the HOV lanes connect, the carpool lanes, if you will. So this is kind of an artist rendition of what it would look like. And if you go to our website at keepplacermoving.com, there's actually a short video on how this all functions as well. Next slide. So the interchange is important, but widening Highway 65 is as important, and currently it is the worst traffic in the region. Southbound 65 from, say, Sunset down to Galleria is where the worst traffic in Placer happens right now. And so the plan is to widen Highway 65 to 8 lanes, 4 in each direction, from the I-80 all the way to Blue Oaks. And then from Blue Oaks all the way to Lincoln, it's 6 lanes, 3 in each direction. We have designed already the first part of this project, which is the expansion of lanes from Blue Oaks to Galleria, as shown in the illustration here in green. This project is fully permitted all the way through environmental review, literally ready to go out to bid, but we don't have the money for it. So we're scrambling, trying to find a way to come up with dollars for this project, but it's ready to go. Another really important project in the next slide I mentioned is Baseline Road. And this is a little way away from Loomis, but very important to the traffic circulation of the region. We've always have planned for, and again, have the right of way, have planned for this in all of our specific plans in Western Placer County to expand Baseline Road from this 2-lane roadway to 4 lanes, and then eventually, when growth warrants, to 6 lanes. So this is a very key project to ours. And again, we're getting this ready ready to build. This will be mostly kind of like Sierra College Boulevard that Aaron mentioned, would be mostly developer financed. But we need to find a little bit of money here to kind of push it across the finish line to get it to 4 lanes. And what it's going to look like in the next slide here is, with this artist rendition, is we're looking at 2 alternatives. One on the top, which is just the 4 lanes. And then on the bottom, which is probably more likely, it's going to be 4 lanes, and we're going to add a separated bike trail, because one of the things we realized in looking out there is, hey, we have all these brand new communities and specific plans. They all have bicycle pedestrian facilities, but they don't all link together. And so it's very much needed a separated, so protected from the roadway, a separated bike trail to connect all these developments all the way out and into Placer, into Sutter County. So from Placer into Sutter. Again, very important project. And then this is the one where you might not have heard of this one, Placer Parkway. So back 20 years ago, when we first designed our general plans in South Placer County and we're planning for growth, we planned an expansion of 65, expansion of 80, expansion of Baseline Road, expansion of our local roadways, and it wasn't enough. And so we basically designed a new roadway, and that is Placer Parkway. It's not a freeway, but it acts like a freeway. It's what's called a limited access expressway. And and why I say it acts like a freeway, it doesn't have signals and intersections. It has on-ramps and off-ramps, just like a freeway. And it will extend from the Whitney Ranch interchange, that kind of half-built interchange up by Rockland, all the way over through Sutter County to Sankey Road on Highway 99. And the next slide will show you the first phase of this project, which is nearing ready to build, ready to list. All told, the whole project's about $595 million. This is, again, another roadway which is primarily paid for by the developers. They generated the need for this. And so the first phase is to finish that Whitney Ranch interchange, and then build the roadway over to Foothills Boulevard, where Foothills will connect that back into Roseville. And then it will be built in phases with each new development out there. So the next one after this is Placer Ranch, and then the next one after that is Amorosa Ranch, and the next one after that is Regional University, and then developments in Sutter County. And so eventually it would be built all the way over into Sutter County and provide a very important access between Placer County and Sacramento County and Sutter County, because you have very large employment centers now developing around Sacramento International Airport, where people are going to commute to anyway. And so we need an effective roadway, this limited access expressway, to do that. And this is its first phase. Next slide. So I talked about these regional roadways, and they're all really important, but we need 2 things. One is we need to be able to get onto these, and some of our interchanges are not big enough. One of them is right here in Loomis, the Horseshoe Bar Road interchange. Rockland's got one, the Rockland Road interchange. Lincoln's got a couple new ones, Nelson and Nicholas. And there's some major roadways that need to be expanded. Blue Oaks Boulevard is under capacity where it goes over the railroad in Roseville. Ferrari Ranch Road is not big enough in Lincoln. So we need these roadway projects that are in our communities to get on to these regional roadways. And so these are really important too. And again, state and federal, there's state and federal funds to fund this, but we need to come up with that 50% match for these roadways. And then the next slide, within our communities, we need to get through and within our communities. And so these are all projects that are very familiar to you here. And I think we even got a couple of mentions here in our questions coming up here. But things like I mentioned Horseshoe Bar Road, but there's a lot of road rehab that's needed here in Loomis. There's some trail projects here in Loomis. There's some traffic signals. This list, and I'm not going to go through every project, we can talk about these and maybe we can answer some of these. But if not, we can, city staff or town staff can get back to you. But these come right out of your your town's capital improvement plan. So you're doing this general plan update right now. This came right out of that document. And now you're adjusting it a little bit right now too. But these are projects that should be very familiar to you, but they're really important because you got to get across Loomis to be able to get to the road, to get to the regional roadway, or you got to get to school, or you got to get to your job, or you got to get to High Hand Nursery, or you got to get to church, or you got to get to soccer practice. Very, very important local projects that, again, there's not enough money, and we need to find money to find how to get these projects done. Next slide. So I talked a lot about roads, and roads are really important, but the other modes of travel are also important too. Roads are, we're a suburban community, so roads are always going to be primary of importance because we have a spread out lifestyle. We have rural people who live in rural areas, so cars, are a big focus of ours. But we also, so people say, well, you focus all on roads. Is it all about roads? No, we can't just do roads. We have to do roads, we have to do bike and ped, and we have to do transit. We have to do everything. So our local bicycle networks are very important. And here in Loomis, this is your bicycle network right here, the map on the left. And it's broken into 3 different types of bike trails. Class 1, the separated ones that are totally separated from the roadway. Class 2s, which there's a barrier separated bike trail or pedestrian trail. And then class 3s, which are actually more prevalent, which are actually bike lanes on your roadways. And we need to build these things. We need to make sure these things connect. And so we have systems to get, again, people to recreational facilities. We need to get our kids to school. We need to get, people around in ways other than cars. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to also create things that we as a community can be very proud of in terms of our regional trail system, or regional bikeway system. And everybody's heard of the American River Bike Trail. Millions of people go on this bike trail, and bikes and pedestrians from Folsom Lake all the way down to Discovery Park in downtown Sacramento. World-class bicycle trail. Built a long time ago by the state of California primarily, but that doesn't happen anymore. A lot of people don't know that we're trying to do that right here in Placer County. And we have a trail system which starts in Roseville, extends eastward to Granite Bay, and it extends westward into Placer County and then into Sacramento County, and eventually loops back down to downtown Sacramento. And so on the northern part of our region here, we're trying to build a world-class bicycle system. So this is something that we can, is a recreational asset that we can be proud of, that we can enjoy, just like the communities in Seattle and Portland and other areas. A looped system regionally here that people can enjoy and call their own. So we're trying to do that. But probably more importantly, I'm sorry, here's the start of that system. You may be familiar with this development in downtown Roseville called the Downtown Bridges Project. Beautiful project in Roseville. This is the start of that in both the eastbound and westbound direction. So this is where that trail starts. And as I was getting to, maybe more important than the regional system here in Placer County is we got to get to that Dry Creek Trail. So if we're going to enjoy it, how do we get from Loomis to Roseville? And how do we get from Auburn to Loomis? And how do we get from Lincoln to Rockland to Roseville and so on? So we're working really hard to create bicycle networks right here, connecting our communities in Placer County. And so we're again trying to connect our communities, to connect to these regional systems as well. And then lastly, I mentioned these gaps. So we have lots of on-street. This is an example of on-street facilities, but we have lots of little bike trails, whether they be class 1s that are totally off the roads, or we have a bunch of on-road class 3 bike trails, but they're little segments all over the place. And so one of the things we work really hard on is trying to fill these gaps of these bike trails and make it one connected system, to make it safer and to make it more pleasurable, and make it so people use it. And a lot of people think, well, these, it's easier to build a bike trail than it is to build a road. No, not really. Because we want these things in like really nice areas along creeks and streams and other environmental aspects of our community. Well, that means it's more complicated, because then you have impacts upon fisheries and wildlife and that. So that makes the environmental process hard. A lot of times we have to cross private property, and that's, that's a complicated endeavor sometimes, especially when somebody doesn't want a bike trail going across their property. Maybe we have to go around. Well, going around is hard. We chose to go one way because it's the easiest way, but maybe that property owner doesn't want it to go through his or her property, and so we have to negotiate or move it. And that's, again, very complicated, but we're working hard at that with us and our partners in the cities. So and then transit. And transit is the last part of our presentation tonight, and thanks for bearing with us. But transit, transit's hard in Placer County, and one of you tonight, said our transit's not very good, and you're right, it's not very good here in Placer, and it's a function of money, but it's also a function of, it's hard to do transit in a suburban location because we're all spread out. It's not like, San Francisco or even downtown Sacramento, where everybody's close together and transit's very effective. When everybody's spread out, we have to create these meandering bus routes that take a long time for people to get to. And if you miss the bus, you gotta wait another hour for the bus to come. And then coming back, you have the same situation. And what might have been a 10-minute car trip is a 4-hour bus trip. And quite frankly, you just don't even use it. And so our buses are empty. So it's very hard for our transit operators. And we have 3 in the county. We have Roseville Transit in Roseville. We have Placer County Transit, which comes here to Loomis, and which connects our communities together and also provides transit service in Rockland and Lincoln. And then we have Auburn's got its own transit system. And these folks work really hard with very limited resources to try to get people to where they're going to go. But we're at this crossroads with transit for 2 reasons. One is the ridership has been going down for 10 years. Secondly, the pandemic transit is, I get in trouble when I say it's offline. It's not offline, but it's greatly reduced. Ridership in some cases is down 95%. And again, it's not because people are getting COVID by riding buses. It's because, it's basically human nature. People are afraid, and I understand that. And we have to restore confidence in our transit system for it to be viable. And we had very good transit systems. If we go to the next slide, very well used transit systems. Our commuter systems were full to the brim. If you wanted to go to downtown Sacramento, the biggest employment area in the region, we have 14 bus trips every day to take you there during the week. Every single one of these was full. So full, if you didn't get on at the right stop, you're standing all the way to Sacramento. So prior to the pandemic, the commuter buses very successful, and we probably need to expand those, add more trips because we're growing. But the problem is the local service, and we need to change our local service and look at it a little differently. If we go to the next slide, the last part of our transit system is for those that really can't use the fixed route system, whether it's they're not near a fixed route, or they're seniors, or they're disabled. And so we have what are called door-to-door services, or dial a ride. And Roseville has it, Placer County has it, Auburn has it. We have a medical service here in Placer County. Actually, it used to be called My Rides, which is what's on the screen. It's now been relabeled Placer Rides. And what that is if you're a senior or disabled person and you can't get to the doctor, it'll actually reimburse a neighbor or a friend or a relative the cost to get you to that medical service anywhere anywhere in Sacramento or Placer County. So that's a very, very important service to help those that need it. And then we're going to try something new here, again, because transit's not really working, and that's a thing called microtransit. I'll explain it here in a slide. But here you see the problem. Prior to the pandemic, last 10 years, ridership's tanking. And there's reasons for this. Some we can do something about, some we can't. The ones we can't do things about is it's really easy to buy a car. You know, you can finance it now for 8 or 9 years. Even a used car you can finance for 8 or 9 years with $0 down. And so it's a piece of cake to get a car. And so what are we going to do about that? And are we going to keep driving these meandering buses around our community with nobody on them and we have to pay for them? Or are we going to try something else? And so Placer County, we don't like to be on the bleeding edge of new things. We like to put our money where proven things are. And so one of the things we're going to take a look at, we're going to do a pilot project, is a thing called microtransit. And you may have ridden this in other communities in the region. They have it in Rancho Cordova. They have it in West Sacramento. They have it in East Sacramento and a couple other communities. And what this is instead of this meandering route, it's kind of like Uber or Lyft. Well, it's a cross between Uber and Lyft and Super Shuttle, if you remember that, a shuttle service. So instead of going on the meandering routes, you use your smartphone, or you call in if you don't have a smartphone and you say, I live here, I want to go to the Safeway. Instead of going on this route, it'll pick you up. It'll pick up, 6 or 8 other people kind of going in the same area, and then it'll take you to where you're going to go. And when you want to come back, you call just like Uber, you get on your smartphone or you call them and say, I want to go back. They pick up 6 or 8 people and bring you back. So instead of 2 hours to get there and back, it'll take you, maybe 40 minutes. So it's a significant thing, and we're going to try it. And we use smaller vehicles. We don't use big 30-foot transit buses. We use, cutaways, or even West Sacramento. The picture in the bottom right is a van, the electric van. And so we're going to give this a try and see with our type of suburban development if this is a better option. It's not any cheaper, but it may be more utilized. So if we're going to pay for these buses to go around our communities, they might as well be ridden and utilized. We're going to try this and see if it works for Placer County. And we're going to have to adjust if it does work, we'll have to adjust our other routes so that you have, on our main thoroughfares. So maybe on Taylor Road, for example, you'd have a regular bus route, but you wouldn't have a bus route that would then go up, into the residential neighborhoods. How you'd get to that bus route is you get on this microtransit. It would take you to that regional bus route, and then you take the regional bus route down into Roseville or Rockland, wherever you needed to go. So if we go to the next slide, the last couple slides here are another really important service. And somebody asked a question about this actually, is that our intercity rail service. So we have in our county here, prior to the pandemic, the third most successful, most ridden intercity rail system in the entire United States. And that is the Capitol Corridor system. It goes from Auburn to Sacramento, and then on to the Bay Area, and then down to Silicon Valley and San Jose. We have one train from Placer County, and then if you don't get on the train, you have to ride the buses to get down to Sacramento. This is very, very popular, and what this actually is back in the 80s and 90s, we had the opportunity to bring light rail into Placer County, and we decided, and at the time it was about $1 billion to $2 billion to do that. And we and our leaders at the time said, we can't afford that. Where are we going to get that money? And you can see things like the thing out, they want to build light rail to the airport. That's not built yet either. So, so our community said, what else is out there that can serve the same purpose to get this intercity rail? And so we formed the Capitol Corridor, and again, 25 years later, we have a great rail system that's a fraction of the cost of light rail. And so what we want to do is we want to expand this because it's so successful. We're going to expand it, but there's some caveats to expanding that, and that'll answer one of the people's questions about why not Loomis. So we're going to expand it. We're going to expand it to initially to 3 trains a day in each direction, and then eventually 10 trains a day in each direction. So the caveat to this, though, is these rail lines that this goes on, we don't own it. Union Pacific Railroad owns it. And so Union Pacific Railroad, because of case law that goes back to the Transcontinental Railroad, we can't tell Union Pacific, you must let us use it. So we can't use eminent domain or anything like that. They are superior in terms of legalities. It's their railroad. They get to dictate what it can be used for. And so as much as I'd like to put a train station in Loomis, as much as I'd like to get these 3 additional trains up to Auburn, UP said no. So we're left with, do we not do it at all, or do we expand it to Roseville? And our leaders in the county said, we're going to expand it to Roseville, and then it'll have connections on to the rest of the county. What our hope is that this is the foot in the door that, and UP's, I wouldn't say they're softening, but they'll at least talk to us. And maybe we won't get, for example, 3 or 10 up to Auburn, but maybe we'll get another one. So we'll have 2 up to Auburn. And then maybe someday we'll be able to get a station in Loomis or something if it warrants. There's some other things with that, they can't be too close together, but we're going to try, and this is a long-term project, but again, we have our stations are full. Prior to the pandemic, if you wanted to ride the train and do a park and ride, go down to Rockland, there's no spots left to take the train. Go down to Roseville, there's no spots left. Go up to Auburn, there's a few spots. But it shows you how popular it is, because face it, driving to the Bay Area it's a crapshoot. You get down, you might get lucky and get down there in a few hours, but on the way back, it takes you 6 hours to get back because of traffic and accidents and stuff. So people like this, and we want to try to expand it. So members have the last word here. So Brian and Jan, you want to say a few words here as we end?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike and Aaron. It was completely fascinating, and I am so grateful that you were able to give such a really in-depth explanation of the issues that we have regionally. And obviously we have our own issues here in our awesome town of Loomis. And so I wish you would just have this every single month.
Well, you guys asked me to come out to your town talks a couple times. I hope you re-engage that as we are all vaccinated, and I'd love to come out and talk to you some more. So
yeah, no, absolutely. We obviously, we all have to be partners, and even though Loomis is a small town, we are the gateway, both east and west. And so we definitely have our issues here, but we are a significant part of our region, and we appreciate you showing us how this is an intricate problem. And thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'd like to say thank you to the people that logged in and are taking their evening to talk about transportation and to learn more about it. Thank you, Mike and Aaron, for the presentations and all of the information. And when I see these presentations, I see opportunity. And there's a great deal of opportunity in our area. And I think that there's a lot of optimism in our area. But with opportunity comes challenges sometimes. And so we have some conversations that are going to be ongoing for a while now of, how do we accelerate the improvement to where it's at the same pace as our growth? How do we fund transportation, and how do we improve transportation? And I think as we get into those conversations, it's going to be very enlightening to those that tune in, kind of the struggles in the process of funding these projects and being competitive with our neighbors around us. So I appreciate the time. I appreciate everybody logging in, and hopefully we can continue to further this conversation over the next couple of months and help shape the discussion for Placer County and how we're going to improve the overall county and also the town of Loomis. So thank you, guys.